that basically takes us in what seems to be the next fight on the main card between Kang and Rani Yahya. Now, a lot of fun and interesting things happening on this one. Not only are we getting a couple vets here, but Rani Yahya, man, this guy's going for the submission record in Bantamweight, going into this fight. And so there's a lot riding on it. I think for him personally, it's going to be a fun fight. And when you look at the way these guys stack up, the one thing about Kang that is always kind of fun to watch is that his fights are always close. Even if you go back and watch the tape, you'll see a lot on his record, split decisions across the board. And it's just the way he fights, the striking seems to be on par with a lot of the level of fighters that he's fought so far in the UFC, but he tries to use the wrestling. And even in the previous fight where we saw him against Lu Pingyang, he was pretty much in guard, working ground and pound for the most part, even got cut up pretty badly via elbow from the bottom position. So it was one of those fights where you saw him get a bit tired. You saw him take a lot of damage from Ping Wang. And I really think that was one where it stands out to me because he's going into a fight now against a guy like Rani Yahya where those types of takedowns could only pose problems for him. I think that Rani Yahya's striking is primarily there to set stuff up. And if he gets this fight to the ground, it's going to be a pretty clean victory for him, in my opinion. I just think that this is going to be one of those, there's levels to this stuff. And unless Kang can keep this fight standing, it's going to be troublesome. And you look at Yaya's history, right? 7 WEC fights, 18 UFC fights. It's just an absolute crazy record when you kind of go over his entire career. And the most interesting part is this guy hasn't been finished via strike since 2009 by Big Joe Benavidez. And that's a WEC fight. So it just shows you, he's been active. He's stayed in the octagon, yet seems to do very well when the fight goes his way in terms of getting to the ground and having the opportunity to land big submissions. And that's exactly what you saw in his fight against Rodriguez, right? By the second round, he already had the setups going by the end of the first for that arm triangle. And then from half guard, he basically lands the submission, the exact same one in the second, was chasing that the whole fight. Looked like he was very much using those takedowns to roll into that position. And that's exactly what he did. And I think if you're Kang, keys to victory here are pretty simple, right? Keep the fight standing, use some kicks, keep it at a distance. I think that Yahya just, very much telegraphs his strikes to set up those takedowns. So if you can just keep Medbay with some kicks, use a jab, I think that this is an opportunity for both guys to showcase just how good their striking is, because neither of them are standing out to anybody as the elite strikers of the UFC. But, with Yahya, it's always that threat of the ground game. And I think in this fight, you're going to see him very much pose a problem as he gets the fight close to the fence, gets the takedowns. Keys to victory for him are fairly simple, and it's get it to the ground as quickly as possible. Even if he tries to showcase his striking in the beginning, I think that it's a very good opportunity for him to try and get that record under his belt. And we talk about Kang. We're kind of saying that his fights are close, but the last loss that he took was against Ricardo Ramos in a split decision. And the only thing that I really have against him is we haven't seen him since 2019 against Lewin. For me, when you're taking on a guy like Rani Yahya, it's who are you training with? Like, where are these BJJ types of MMA fighters that you're kind of rolling with? I would love to know that part of it, because it would very much help us understand where things are for him in terms of the ground game. But I think the keys to victory for both guys are pretty simple, right? If, Luz was able to get him close to a guillotine via, from his guard, I think that's a very interesting option for Rani Yahya. And so I think Kang needs to be very aware of all those nifty areas, especially against the fence when he's trying to get the fight to the ground, if he's not enjoying the striking. But if I'm him, it's striking all day and avoiding that itch to take him down as much as I want, because, if that's my game plan going into every fight, it's going to be hard to avoid those habits. But if he doesn't in this fight, it keeps him very much in it. So, I think it's a pretty simple fight to break down. When we talk about the lines, I think that we're going to have to give Rani Yahya the advantage here. And to be quite honest, I'm going to go somewhere as high as a minus 250 to a minus 300. I just think that the experience is going to speak volumes in this one. And despite Kang's, record and only losing to Ricardo Ramos back, so long ago, I still think that's a young Ricardo Ramos on his come up. And now we've got a Rani Yahya who looks really hungry to just kind of finish his UFC career in a big way and looking to make some record book changes if possible. So I'm going to give him a bit of a hefty line. I think it could be close. We are talking about a Kang that just doesn't have the striking and kind of tends to, focus on his wrestling a bit more, which I think in this fight's a bad idea. So let's take a look. I think it's going to be, okay. Rani Yahya coming in as a plus 170 dog, with Kang coming in as minus 200 favorite, but obviously that line was atrocious and they realized it very quickly. And now we're seeing Rani come in at a plus 116, plus 110 on some places, but Kang is definitely, the consistent favorite, as high as a minus 150 and as low as a minus 135 in some places. But the surprising line for me, I just think that from a tape perspective, there's very much to be said about the difference here and what I think cardio is going to look like late in the fight. I just think there's more paths to victory for Rani if he's able to get this fight up against the fence or to the ground. I think it's going to be one of those levels to this game thing, and it's going to be tough for Kang to land those, big shots to either put him out. And when you look at just, Yahya's chin and the reliance on the grappling and the submissions for Kang, it just seems like a very interesting call by Vegas in the beginning. And you're seeing the pundits and UFC bettors alike kind of make the move there to move that line into the correct direction. So I'm still on the dog side. I think that's another one where I can kind of make a pick right now. The Chico Camus and Ricardo Ramos only losses in almost 10 years stands out, and I think that's the areas you're going to see can get the bump. But weigh-ins, things like that, because we haven't seen him in almost 2 years, that's going to be the most important area in terms of development. And I think right now we just have to give Yahya a bit of the edge here, because I think he's looking great, and against this level of competition, that BJJ just seems to be a problem.